Welcome. You're watching Medically Speaking. I'm Meenakshi Upreti. I'm being joined by Dr. Abhishek Shankar. He's an associate professor at the Department of Radiation Oncology at AIIMS Patna. Thank you for joining on NewsX, sir. My very first question to you. We all know that it was World No Tobacco Day a few days ago. All of us talk about the ill effects of tobacco. The one product we all focus on so much is cigarettes. All of us are so focused on cigarettes that we do not talk about the other forms of tobacco abuse, which is very, very prevalent in India. What are these other forms of tobacco abuse, and why do you think we should be exceptionally wary of them?
Okay, so you very rightly pointed out, because it's guideline, everybody thinks like it started from Western world. So they have only one form of tobacco, which is cigarette smoking. In India, the situation is entirely different. Most commonly, we have other non-smoking product, which is called smokeless tobacco, which is 85% of the total burden of tobacco users in India. If you talk about the smoking also, BD is most common than the cigarettes, which is 10%, and cigarette is only 5%. And it is always questions. It is in our mindset that whenever we talk about tobacco, we always imagine cigarettes, and which is very, very bad. And some other factor, it is just not making things happen in the right direction, because our focus is just on 5% and we are lacking attention on 95%, which is a major reason for the ill effect of tobacco on human health. So this is very rightly pointed out. Even you talk about our law, which is cigarette and other tobacco products, because here cigarette is getting importance, which is by Government of India, which is called COTPA, Cigarette and Other Tobacco Products Law. So there is a need to change it. And, we have to focus more on the smokeless tobacco form, which is causing more disease. And, moreover, it is more unorganized sector. Cigarette is an organized sector. So we need to focus more where, work has not been done. And there is very, very difficult, because other form of tobacco is khani, jarda. You use it betel quoits without tobacco or jarda. So these are, used in the rural areas. So we need to just, focus more on that, rather than just fixing our goal around cigarette. So
Well, it's very fixated, of course, with curbing cigarette smoking. So you're right about. You spoke of other forms of tobacco consuming, for example, zarda, etc. These are mostly, of course, chewing tobacco. Where do you think, sir, the government is lacking? And what do you think, in your view as an expert, needs to be done in the future?
Because right now, for us, what we are approaching, is the counter marketing approach that government is doing it. They are increasing the taxation, making this tobacco product inaccessible to the people. They are having rules that you can't use in the public area near to the institution. But what is needed nowadays? You have to need a counter marketing approach. Like you can see many of our stars are advertising for pan masala products. Can you remember anybody who is a big star ambassador for anti-tobacco activities? We don't have it. So we need to start the counter marketing approach. You must be remembering that 007 was advertised on the first page of many leading newspaper. Have you ever seen any newspaper, covering anti-tobacco campaign on anybody? Or like we have achieved so much success in the cleanness after the, Prime Minister announced many brand ambassadors, to promote cleanness among the society. So with this kind of approaches are needed, and probably media is also, because I always learn so much from the marketing approach of polio in this country, by which we could eradicate polio in this country, where media also supported us a lot, government program, advocacy. So this kind of combined approach is missing right now. So for me, one is, you need to start a behavioral campaign at the community level, and it takes too much time, because to get a short-term goal, achieve a short-term goal, you need 20 years. And apart from that, we all must start a counter marketing approach against tobacco.
But do you think, sir, what you say sounds great on paper. Doesn't it sound like a utopian world? Do you think it's possible to be tobacco free, say in 20, 30 years? Because tobacco is an addiction. How do you get rid of it? For those who are already perhaps consuming tobacco, those who are already smoking cigarettes, Is it possible to give it up altogether? Because many people say, no, not possible. How do you counter that?
Yes, so we have, because, in spite of all the technical advantages, discovery in medicine, ultimately we are just stick with the cognitive behavior therapy. The way you have started, you have to meet a doctor, they can advise you, they can tell about the ill effects. And until and unless you decide to quit it, it's very, very difficult, because this is a stage, the pre-contemplation stage, where you don't want to live tobacco, then you come to the contemplation, then you quit tobacco, then always the chances of, recurrence, like you quit tobacco for some times, then again you just get a craving for that and you started. So you need to meet a doctor who works with the tobacco cessation activities. First thing is the cognitive behavior therapy, followed by pharmacotherapy. There are medicine available, so there are side effects, so I will not advise anybody to take it by their own. They have to consult a doctor who deals with addiction. And yes, there is a drug therapy also along with the cognitive behavior therapy.
Right. So what you said, let's divide it into two before we go any further in the conversation. One, of course, how the onus lies end of the day with the individual, and how do you quit tobacco? Secondly, let's distinguish, as you rightly said in the beginning, between smoking and chewing tobacco. Chewing tobacco, mostly restricted one, either to rural areas or the lower income strata, even in the urban areas. How do you reach out to those people? Because end of the day, it's not possible for many of them to afford doctor's fee. And all of the procedure which you spoke about, one, lack of awareness, and two, lack of resources. That seems to be the big problem, isn't it, as of now, sir?
We have the program in place, National Tobacco Control Program. So they have a very wide network. So probably what is missing, that people are not very well aware about, ill effects of tobacco. Many of the times they don't want to learn more about it. And the what kind of advocacy campaign, you just show a patient of cancer, people will learn to avoid it rather than they will take interest in that. So there is a need for better, advocacy campaigns, which can really make people understand, and who can understand better than a media person. How many times you see the media channels are talking about tobacco, ill health about tobacco, and COVID-19 has really given us a big hope that if you plan to make people aware about anything, COVID-19, you just saw about you ask about any rural people, they will tell you what is the difference between Covaxin and Covishield. So this is amazing. So probably more efforts are needed from the media people, the people who deal with tobacco, along with government efforts, because government have so many things to see. And you can see the first thing, no smoking policy, if you apply in the various offices or outside the offices, and you just find that somebody smoking from the media channels, they will be thrown out from the company. I think it will solve many of the purpose or any hospitals, because I can see that many of the institution, all the things in just written, they hardly follow the guideline. And the major challenge in this country is the enforcement at ground level. We can think about moonshot program, by sitting in our offices, but ground level, until and unless we can tackle the ground level problem, we can't achieve the success. And, the short-term intervention should have a long-term sustainability, where we are missing. We talk about a lot on World No Tobacco Day, but rest 364 days, nobody talks about tobacco. So it should have a sustainable goal.
So a sustainable effort to create awareness about the ill effects of tobacco needed. And you rightly said ground implementation. That was going to be my next question, but you sort of answered it in advance, sir. Two more questions before we let you go. You spoke about, chewing tobacco. As we conclude, any data you'd like to share with us? Because you rightly said, when you show the pictures of a cancer patient who's suffering, that sort of deters people from consuming tobacco themselves. How many people are affected or have had, got cancer because of the ill effects of chewing tobacco? What really is the recovery rate, and when can they reverse the course, as and when they quit?
Okay, so this is a very important question. We know that in recent report in tobacco, as we are the second most producer of the tobacco after China. China, in I think 300 million people use tobacco, mostly the smoking form. But in India, around 275 million people use tobacco, and 205 million out of that is a smokeless tobacco. Now you can understand how big this problem of smokeless tobacco is. And in contrary to that, we are also the second biggest exporter of tobacco after Brazil. Brazil is the first one, India is the second one. So coming to cancer, there are many cancer which is caused by smokeless and smoking form of tobacco. Smoking form of tobacco is mainly lung cancer, head and neck cancer, bladder cancer, and many other cancer. Almost tobacco causes 13 types of cancer, and smokeless tobacco in the country, we have the more incidence of head and neck cancer is the most common cancer among male, and the major reason is the smokeless form of tobacco. Tripura, as per the last GAT survey, it's the highest incidence of tobacco users, up to 65%. And in India, among adults more than 15 years, 29% of the adults use tobacco in one or the other form. In cancer, relation is very, very high. Almost in Northeastern, 40 to 50% cancer is caused by tobacco use. In India, almost 30% cancer is related to the tobacco use. So if we stop using tobacco, and I think there is a large number, agitation is required. I haven't seen anybody has,
yeah. To ask you that, as you sign off, what is the advice you'd like to give people? You sort of started answering it by, of course, saying on how we need to control, and end of the day, you rightly said, enforcement agencies needed, sustainable goals needed, but end of the day, the onus has to lie with an individual. Nobody can keep an eye on an individual 365 days, 24 hours.
So ultimately, we need to make people aware. That is the only goal that we have to achieve. Maybe it takes 20 years, but we can start from the school education to the college education, and we can't change things overnight, because, as I said, community-based intervention and the changes required many, many years. So we should start from today, and we can have a better future tomorrow. So we should try to people aware using all form of awareness tool, like using the media, print media, making brand ambassador, doctors being more responsible, using theater, NGO. So it's a combined efforts. Nobody can take, even government can't ensure that we can completely done that. They have to see so many things. So apart from the government efforts, we all have to come together to make this thing possible for our country. And then we can imagine about a tobacco-free environment where we can, apart from environmental pollution, at least we should get a relief from tobacco.
Well, absolutely. A sustained goal required. It may take, as you say, 10 years, 20 years, but end of the day, it has to be a combined effort. We, as concerned, we at NewsX, of course, trying to do our duty. But you are right. We need to talk a little more about tobacco, not just around certain days like the World No Tobacco Day. But thank you, sir, for joining us on NewsX and sharing your views with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.